Well, your camera went off. Could you turn your camera off and on again? There we go. All right. So I'm glad to meet you, Pooja. Um, you asked a question about basically about timing.
Yes.
And the first thing that I would like to talk about is the word anicca. Anicca means everything is in flux, everything is in constant movement, and that actually interferes with with people's practice in many, many different ways. That in fact the Buddha talks about it in the the three characteristics of anicca, dukkha, anatta. Now, what we mean by anicca, dukkha, anatta, in reality, is imagine that you're traveling down a road and it comes to a fork in the road, and that you've got a choice of going one direction or the other. All right. And so anicca then is the traveling down the road and coming to the fork.
Yeah.
And you can either take the dukkha way or you can take the anatta way. Now, when we say anatta, what we're meaning is that um, not only do things change, but so do you. You're not
Yeah.
fixed. There's no fixed or permanent self that's taught, like in Christianity, Islam, and Hinduism, of a permanent soul. That in fact, within Hinduism, one of the teachings is that you merge that soul with
Into a soul.
Brahma.
Yeah.
Now, the reality really would be is that when you are able to merge with Brahma in the sense of merging with reality, reality is constantly changing. That Brahma is not fixed as a soul, and neither are you.
Yeah.
But when things start to change and you're not there for that change, then naturally dukkha is going to arise. And this is then the rationale is that people who are sitting and practicing for an hour go through potentially hundreds, if not thousands, of anicchas, of changes, and they just don't have the skill to constantly keep up with all the changes that are happening. Every in breath, every out breath is a change, and mostly the changes come through the attitude that we have that, let us say, kind of conditions the thoughts that we have. And thoughts come and come and come and come. There's just thoughts. In fact, one of the expressions that's been used for centuries is called the monkey mind. You've no doubt heard about the concept of monkey mind, where the mind is jumping and jumping and jumping. Now,
Yep.
one of the qualities of the monkey mind is the reason that it leaves the place that it's in is because it's uncomfortable and dissatisfying. And so the mind jumps from one dissatisfaction to another dissatisfaction to another dissatisfaction, one dukkha after another.
Yeah.
And so we need to start practicing to see this clearly, to be able to see dukkha, that's actually, the Buddha says that he only teaches one thing, and that is dukkha, dukkha nirodha,
Yeah.
which means that if you can see the dukkha, you can change.
Yeah.
And that when we are confronted with the new thoughts, we're generally not aware of them because we're used to them. Oh, I've been thinking that way for so long, I will continue to think that same way, rather than making a change to keep up with the fact that everything is changing on the outside and partially on the inside, but we don't change the mind. And so it winds up being dissatisfied with all the changes that are made.
Yeah.
Now, in that regard, those are those dissatisfying thoughts that we have. The Buddha calls them akusala. Now, kusala actually has two qualities to it. One is the quality of imagining a knife, that the kusala grass, you might know this because the kusala grass grows in India.
India.
And in the old days, because of the serration and the sharpness of the edge of the leaves, people would use it as a knife.
Nice.
However, making that knife and using that knife was dangerous. You could cut yourself easily enough on it. And so it also has the quality of not only cutting, it has the quality of skillfulness.
Yeah.
And so when we say that the thoughts are akusala, that means that they're not skillful and not wholesome. We use the
Wholesome.
word in English of wholesome, and that means the two qualities of we cannot cut into that thought to see the depths, nor do we have the skill
Ill.
to
Yeah.
use the knife to do that. So, one of the things that I recommend students do is to set it up so that they can practice really often
Yeah.
for short periods of time. We can practice, and we practice for short periods of time throughout the day over and over and over again, which has the quality then of beginning to develop the skills.
Yeah.
Okay. We need skill in order to play a musical instrument. We have to practice. Well, imagine your life is like music or is like a dance. It's Leela. Everything is in constant motion, everything is moving. Can we practice to make beautiful, skillful movements
Yeah.
in the mind?
Yeah.
So, this is the reason why we practice the way that we do, that we recommend, is to practice often,
Yeah.
to remember to practice often, because a lot of people will have one wholesome thought and that will be immediately followed by an unwholesome
Hello.
thought, and they can't even see that.
Yeah.
And so later they'll have another wholesome thought, and that thought will be followed by an unwholesome thought, followed by yet another unwholesome thought.
Yeah.
Okay. And that even if they're mindful enough to see that that second thought was unwholesome, they'll fuss at themselves, they'll be critical. Oh, you're supposed to have wholesome thoughts. And that thought of, oh, you're supposed to have wholesome thoughts is a failure. Okay. That's an unwholesome thought right there.
Yeah.
But never mind, start again is a wholesome thought.
Yeah.
So whenever we begin again with, I can do
Do
this.
this.
I can have wholesome thoughts. So that thought of I can have wholesome thoughts. So whenever you have thoughts of dead pets, for instance, you can say, goodbye, dead pet, and I'm okay now without
Yeah.
you. You're certainly dead. You're okay without me.
Me. Yes.
Okay. But if we have the thought of the dead pet of, oh, I miss that dead pet, then that is in fact an unwholesome thought,
Okay.
wanting something that you don't have.
Yeah.
All right. And so we have to practice then having wholesome thoughts. Or another way of saying it is to stop having dissatisfaction, dissatisfying thoughts. That's dukkha. And dukkha nirodha is having happy, wholesome thoughts.
Yeah.
Magical thinking, by the way, is having unwholesome thoughts.
Yeah.
Like I want a talisman or I want a ceremony or something to make me happy,
Happy.
rather than I can do it on my own. I can make myself happy. In fact, look at me right now. I'm already happy. Okay. And so that's the practice that we have to go for, is the practice looking at the thought that we're having and then making the right noble effort. Now, much of what I have seen on the internet, especially on YouTube, has some very nice Buddhist videos, but they all seem to be missing the most important point. And that is not that the Buddha didn't believe in gods or heavens and hells and all of that kind of stuff, but rather that we create our own heaven and hell, but then they'll leave it at that without saying, and here's how you do that. They always miss out on teaching about the Eightfold Noble Path. And without the Eightfold Noble Path, the method to come out of dukkha, then the teaching of dukkha is useless.
Yes. Yeah.
Telling people to just come out of it is not enough. We need to break that down into the steps of you've got to remember to look at your unwholesome thoughts, see them as unwholesome thoughts, and then make the change into wholesome thoughts. So you have the thought, the pets are dead, but the next thought is, but I'm alive and I'm still okay. I'm all right. They're okay dead too.
Yes.
Rather than, oh, poor me, I miss my pet, so I should go on a walkabout in order to preserve their memory. You don't have to preserve their memory. They can be dead all by themselves. They don't need you to help them be dead. But your thoughts about dead pets is not going to be any beneficial to you.
Yeah.
What would be beneficial to you is stop thinking about dead cats, dead dogs, and start thinking about, well, everything is okay. Everything is fine. But in another way of thinking is that now what a relief it is, you don't have to take care of them. You don't have to feed them. You don't have to clean up after them.
Yeah.
They're okay the way they are, and I'm okay too because I've got nothing to do.
Yeah.
Nothing to do and no place to go, and everything is just okay.
Yes.
All right. That's going to be the practice, but most students don't have the skill level. They don't have the sati or the mindfulness skill developed well enough. So after they'll have the thought of, oh, I'm okay without those pets, then the next thought will be, oh, but I miss them.
That
They
that
would
is
go
usually
right back into the unwholesome thoughts. That's our habit. That's our pattern that we have developed. Okay. And so we can only keep our wholesome thoughts for a short time. But if we keep coming back to having wholesome thoughts,
also.
to sit down, let us say, for 5 minutes every hour, take that 5 minutes and say, for the next 5 minutes, I'm going to have wholesome thoughts.
Yeah.
Then that 5 minutes of wholesome thoughts is actually going to help two things. One is going to help you to change your attitude right here and now, and changing one's attitude. In the sutras, by the way, this attitude that I'm talking about, they talk about it as state of mind.
Yeah.
The Sita Nupassana. What kind of state of mind are you in? And when you miss the pets, that's a loser's attitude, a victim's attitude. I feel like a loser. I would be better off if I had my pets back.
Yeah.
And we're going to change that attitude by telling ourselves everything is already okay. I'm just fine. And then we develop the attitude of I'm okay. I'm not a victim. I'm a winner, in fact. All right. So that's the first one, is immediately we get the benefit of having the wholesome thoughts. But then later on, during that next 50 minutes, we'll start to have that attitude begin to change, is going to start changing and conditioning the thoughts that we're having during that hour.
Yeah.
And then we go back and we practice again for 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Yeah.
And then that 5 minutes is going to help us during the next hour.
Yes.
All right. And so pretty soon, by practicing every 5 minutes in an hour and every 5 minutes in an hour, we begin to slowly fill in the gaps.
Yes.
Now, one of the qualities that a lot of people miss is the quality of they think that the spiritual journey is a long, long, long process. In fact, it's actually a bad translation to call it the Eightfold Noble Path. A better translation would be Eightfold Noble Method or way, a way of thinking.
Yeah.
And that if you can change that unwholesome thought to a wholesome thought, right then and there, you have fulfilled the teaching of the Buddha.
Yeah.
So enlightenment is only one thought away. It's only one step away. And all we have to do is take the right noble effort to have a happy thought, a wholesome thought, a satisfying thought, and
Yeah.
become satisfied, feel satisfied. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
And then we go back and have an unwholesome thought again. But we start to developing the skills so
Yeah.
that we start to have more and more often we have wholesome thoughts, wholesome attitudes, wholesome feelings, feelings of satisfaction, and we begin to fill in those gaps.
Yeah.
But going back to what I said before, when we fill in that gap, that's all there is to it, becoming satisfied. That's what the Buddha taught. He didn't teach magic.
Yeah.
Enlightenment is not way off there someplace. It's right here now, immediately available to you.
Yes.
Right in this minute. You can change from being dissatisfied, oh, I've lost my cat, into being satisfied, I'll be okay without her. Everything is fine. I don't have to take care of that cat.
Yeah.
So that's all there is to it. But because of Hinduism being so highly influential on Buddhism, in fact, they've tried to steal Buddhism. They've tried to even make the Buddha a Tirthankata
Yeah.
and incorporate it into Hinduism to where Hinduism is a long, long journey taking sometimes many lives. Rather than the teaching of the Buddha is, it's actually instant within the time that it takes you to change.
Yeah.
So the Buddha's model is an instantaneous change model, change now. And the teaching of Hinduism is someday, way off into the future, someday I'll change.
Yeah.
And so this is the practice that we have, and we need to practice this over and over and over again throughout the day.
Yes.
To actually maybe even set a timer on the cell phone so that every hour the alarm goes off and we can say, hot dog, now it's time to feel good.
Yes.
Oh, what a relief it is. Wow, I was thinking about dead cats and now I don't have to.
Yes.
And so you can go on that walkabout if you want to.
Yeah.
But the important thing is, can you change your mind? And you've got an opportunity to change your mind every step you take.
Yes.
So take a happy step forward rather than an, oh, poor me, I've got to make this journey to make the cat feel better because the cat's dead.
Dead. Yeah. 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 And the journey is about, it's for me rather than them. So I'm pretty mindful of that. But like you said, that's a good determination for the journey, that every step of the way I should just look at having wholesome thoughts, and that should keep the momentum going.
And that's all there is to it.
Yeah.
But we have to practice that over and over and over again.
Yes.
Just like you can say to the violin player, the student who gets his new violin. Okay, take the bow and draw it across the string and make a sound. Okay, now put your finger on this fret. Actually, the violins don't have frets. The student has to figure out where they are by listening, and then draw that bow. And now the teacher says, that's all there is to playing a violin. But the child hasn't made any beautiful music. He can't play Beethoven's violin concerto yet. He's got to practice.
Yes.
But what do we practice? Putting the finger down on the fret and drawing the bow and making a note. But we have to practice that a million times, 2 million times, 10 million times, over and over and over again. And so this is why I recommend for every hour, take 5 minutes and play your musical instrument,
Yeah.
your beautiful heart.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Dhammarato, as I'm very grateful you shared the Dhamma with me.
All right. Well, are you going to go practice that then? That's the important thing. Yes. Okay. All right. Well, when you start to practice that for a while, a week or so, give me another call and we'll talk about it again. Okay.
I will do that. Yes.
All right. Well, we'll see you later then.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Namaste.
Namaste.
And Sawatika.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Take care.